So I'm recording this video. I don't know what today is, August something, 14th, 15th. My name is Janelle, and I wanted to come on here and give my testimony as a Christian. I wanted to talk about some of the things that God has shared with me. Pretty simple. I'm just a pretty simple girl. I do hair in a small town in northern Arizona, and I have had a really incredible life. And I thought that it was time for me to share some of those things with people, the public, and maybe that it would help somebody, maybe that it would inspire somebody, maybe somebody else understands, maybe somebody else has had experiences that are similar, and it's long overdue. So I am a born-again Christian. I have been a Christian for 6 years, just a little bit over about that. And I would love to tell my testimony, but I think I might talk about it in another video. It's pretty long. It's a pretty long thing when God's working on you. But really, I started questioning life and God and things like that at a very, very young age. And when I became a Christian, I kind of was like, you know what? I have a lot of questions. And if I'm going to subscribe to whatever it all means, then I want some, I have some questions that I need answered. And so I started on this path of trying to find the Lord, and I just became hungry for him. And through a series of events, I finally just gave in, submitted, and gave my life to him. And who knew that it would be this amazing, wonderful journey, and that he would open my eyes to things, sometimes things that I don't want to see. But a lot of times things that I do want to see. I asked for it. I prayed for knowledge. I prayed for discernment. I prayed for things that were unknown, and the hidden things. That's what I wanted to know. So at any rate, I began to ask God in prayer for knowledge. And he began to give me a few different visions about things, and I would write down my notes. And he's a good God. He's a mighty God. He's seen me through some really, really hard times. He's been there with me. He's been there right with me, actually. One night I felt him standing right behind me. My back was warm, and I was going through probably one of the hardest times in my life. So I'll talk about all of those things coming up. But I want to start at the beginning, not at the beginning of my testimony necessarily, but at the beginning of the Bible. So here's this really cool little Bible. Isn't this thing neat? Look at how old and tiny it is. Wow, this may have been Jesus's first edition. Probably not. But anyways, I think it's very interesting. It's got tiny little paper pages. I mean, the book is paper too. It's just this little tiny thing. I don't know where I picked it up, but I have it, and I'm going to read out of it because it's old and cool, and it's only been colored in once or twice by my kids. So basically it says, the self-pronouncing edition, the Holy Bible containing the Old and New Testaments, translated out of the original tongues with the former translation diligently compared and revised, conformable to the edition of 1611, commonly known as the Authorized or King James Version. The World Syndicate Publishing Company, Cleveland and New York. And I think it's interesting that it says commonly known as the Authorized or King James Version, because it had to get authorized, all of the stuff in here. And I'm not here to tell you that if there's something that's outside of the Bible that you shouldn't believe that, because I get a lot of information outside of just what's in the Bible. But I use this little fact checker, this little life manual, this little salvation manual, if you will, to reference back and to get confirmation and to understand what is going on, what we're here for, why we are given this chance of life, why it happens. That might be different for a lot of people. There are a lot of different thoughts and viewpoints and religions, and I'm here to tell you about mine, about my relationship, about my religion, about my Bible, about my visions, about my dreams, about the information that God gives to me. When I first, became a Christian, I had all these questions. I started asking God questions in prayer. I guess I have to include some of my testimony in here. So anyways, I had an argument with an ex-family member, my ex-mother-in-law, and she drank. So she probably, I don't know if it even affected her like it affected me. It was something that I didn't really understand what was happening at the time, but I ended up leaving her house, and in the middle of the night just crying and staying at a hotel that was closed before I could drive home, because I had like a glass of wine or something that evening, and just waking up the next day and driving back to where I lived, and just really felt God calling me to go to church, calling me to, I think I turned on a Christian channel somewhere there along the way, and just really fell in love with the music and the message and just everything that it had to do with, all of the way it made me feel, the energy. And I started playing Christian music in my house. I asked my kids, this was a Wednesday that this happened, I asked my kids, you guys want to go to church? And they said yes. And I mean, we were at church Sunday, and I had an amazing revelation. Just, I had found God. He had been working on me for a long time, and I found him, but he knew where I was. And I had a lot of questions, because I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and I've seen things. I've seen UFOs. I've experienced things that I would consider paranormal. I grew up eventually with a teenage mom, and I eventually went to live with my grandparents, who ended up raising me. And my grandmother was into the occult. I mean, we would go see psychics, and she gave me a set of tarot cards at one point, and I started using those tarot cards and became really good at it. And those tarot cards I have gotten rid of at this point, but I tried to get rid of them, and they came back to me, and I got rid of them again. They came back to me again, and I had to really work to I had to really find Jesus and say a prayer to get them gone. So I have kind of this long story. I'll just start at the beginning here, okay? I found out along the way that this Bible is more than meets the eye. I had been going to church and stuff like that for quite a while. Knew the story of Jesus somewhat, I mean, we all get a little bit of education in it. And so what I ended up doing was just asking the Lord. I mean, I felt like I wanted to know a couple of different things. I had previously just thought, who can understand a God that gives us free will, and yet at the same time, when we exercise that free will, or in Genesis 6, when we exercised that free will, he, flooded the earth. Like, I couldn't wrap my head around a God that would give us free will in the first place, and then when we use the free will, and apparently everybody had terrible thoughts in their head, because that's all it says. It doesn't divulge as to what the thoughts were, or what they were doing, or exactly what was going on. But I couldn't understand like why he would just kill everybody and save Noah. Noah had good thoughts. Noah was, whatever. And I've heard a lot of people say it this way, that God is an ethical God, and that, if you weren't acting in an ethical way, then, God you're in trouble. Like, he's coming after you. And I can understand that. I can understand that he would want to create something and then have it be good, and that somewhere along the way, the experiment wasn't working out, so he scrapped it and started over. However, there's things going on today that parallel what was happening in the days of Noah. Well, that's interesting, because there's a scripture that says that in the days of Noah, so will it be, in the end times. And so you have to look at what was happening in the days of Noah. And so I started looking at what was happening in the days of Noah. I mean, I was excited to become a new Christian. I was wanting to read the Bible. I was like, okay, I'm going to read, the whole thing. And I've read quite a bit of it. I have yet to read it from cover to cover, straight through. But I'm still on this journey. So I thought that I would just read some of my tiny little Bible here, and we could talk about a couple things. I like Genesis chapter 5 up here, where it's talking about Enoch. All of the days of Enoch were 365 years, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. That means that he was raptured up. God took him. He removed him from the world and took him up to see the heavenly things. And Methuselah lived 180 years, and Lamech, and it goes on in the generations. But that's important right there. That's put a little star next to your Genesis chapter 5:24. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. So it's important. Chapter 6, okay? Genesis chapter 6. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God, the Hebrew word is the same as angels, okay? But when Lucifer fell from heaven, he took a third of the angels with him. And so those are the characters that we're talking about in this chapter. So the sons of God saw the daughters of men, and that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also flesh, and yet his days shall be 120 years. Because if you understand what happened there, there's not every book is here. There are books, the Gnostic Gospels, Dead Sea Scrolls, those types of things that give information that were not approved or authorized. Okay, so we're talking about these fallen angels. They come to earth. They take women from which they choose. They mate with them. And God said, listen, you guys are spirit form, angels or fallen angels, whatever you are, but you are immortal. You're not made to live and die. Human beings are made to live and die. They need wives. They need husbands to do those things, to procreate and to become one. And you guys were not made like that. You weren't made to do that. You don't need to take a wife. You don't need to take a fleshly wife and to procreate. I made you differently. And you can go in and read the Nag Hammadi Gnostic Gospels, Dead Sea Scrolls. They've been documented there. You can read the Book of Enoch, and it tells the entire story in detail. It says that they came here. It says that they did a lot of different things. They taught humankind a lot of different things, evil things, terrible things. And so they gave birth to giants, and those giants were mating with other giants, okay? And the generations are going and going, and they are then mating with animals, okay? And we're getting hybrids, okay? And they're messing with the DNA. And in the meantime, they're demanding blood sacrifice, and they're trying to eat. They are eating people. They're demanding that the people bring them people. but it's always about the blood, right? There's always something about the blood. There's life in the blood. It's life-giving. So it says, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, that he also is flesh, and his days shall be 120 years. So he's numbering their days there. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bare children unto them, and they became mighty men from which were of old men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of these men were great in the earth, and that every imagination and thought of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I've created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. So there was something wrong, not just with the people or the offspring of these things, but there was something wrong with the fowl in the air and the creepy things, okay? The creepy things got even creepier when the giants, right? That's pretty creepy. We're multiplying and making these creatures, okay? And Noah had grace. I think this is amazing because this little Bible hasn't been translated 100 times. This is like so old, so check it out. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So it wasn't just man, but it was, you know, the animals, right? They were probably clashing, fighting, and probably was crazy. National Geographic times 10, right? And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. So everything had been corrupted. Everything had been, through a few generations, probably just messed up, right? Like look at the way that the animals are today, right? The giraffes and the lions, they don't have babies together, okay? That's not how it works. So you know, God is just saying whatever was going on. We don't get a detailed, complete description of how terrible it was, but we can get an idea. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make an ark. And they give all of the descriptions of that. I mean, and everybody pretty much knows, you know, what happened from then on out, right? I've spent 6 years learning about the fallen angels. I've spent 6 years learning about sacrifice, blood sacrifice, these things that these creatures were wanting from the people, and trying to understand what's the deal with that. And even just today, just having some information come to me that's quite fascinating. But I have been interested in a lot of different biblical studies, and God's really been working on me. And I hope that you enjoy these videos and that they bring you understanding, because the world around us isn't exactly what it seems. And while we still have the opportunity to use social media and things like that, I think that we should be using it to advance his kingdom. And I'm being called to do exactly that. And I have a series of a few different videos that are going to be coming your way. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my videos and what I have to say. And I will be making a few more here, and I will see you soon. So God bless and take care.